$12 million. That is how much money Kyle Forgeard claims SteveWillDoIt made while he was part of NELK. $12 million. And Steve is still out here acting like he got robbed. But wait for it, because here's the part nobody is talking about. The guy who was actually in the room, filming every single one of those merch drops, just came forward and said Kyle's numbers do not tell the full story. So who is lying? Who is leaving money out of the conversation? And why is Steve now offering to fight Kyle for free in front of the whole internet at Adin Ross's boxing event? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to have a completely different opinion on who the real villain is in this story. All right, let's rewind for anyone who is just catching up on this whole situation, because there is a lot of layers here, and you need the context before the chaos hits. SteveWillDoIt was one of the biggest faces of the NELK boys. If you grew up watching NELK, you know Steve was the guy, the one doing the wildest stuff, pulling the biggest reactions, driving the merch drops through the roof. When NELK dropped merch, people were watching numbers hit 8 million, 13 million in sales, live on screen. That is the energy we are talking about. But behind the scenes, things were apparently very different. Steve eventually got separated from NELK, lost his equity in the company, and then his entire YouTube channel got deleted. After that, the internet started asking questions. Did Kyle and NELK have something to do with the channel deletion? Did Steve get a fair deal? Was he pushed out? Steve, being Steve, did not sit quietly and process this privately. He went full crash out mode on social media, calling Kyle a loser, accusing NELK of botting their views, claiming he was finessed out of his money, and even dragging their sponsor Prize Picks into it. It was chaotic. It was everywhere. And it forced Kyle to actually respond. So Kyle drops this video, and bro, the calmness alone is a character choice. He is sitting there, composed, no yelling, just numbers. And the numbers he puts up are wild. He says from 2019 to 2023, SteveWillDoIt personally earned just over $12 million in cash directly from NELK. $12 million. Kyle himself, as the owner and founder, made under $3.5 million over that same period. His explanation is that the money had to stay in the company. You are flying 15 people through Europe every week, booking Airbnbs, paying editors, filmers, production crew, uploading a video every single week. That does not come cheap. So as the owner, Kyle took less so the machine could keep running. He also breaks down the equity situation. Steve was given 10% of the company. He then invested $500,000 for an additional 5%. But over time, Steve made it clear he wanted immediate cash over long-term ownership. So Kyle says they returned his $500,000 plus $50,000 in interest, and Steve voluntarily walked away from his equity in exchange for full independence and no more revenue sharing. Both sides signed the agreement. It is done. And here is where it gets crazy. Kyle also says Steve still holds 15% of Happy Dad, the canned drink brand. So Steve is sitting here acting completely broke and robbed while holding equity in a company that is in stores nationwide. No cap. That detail alone changes the whole framing of this beef. Kyle closes by saying when Steve's channel got deleted, he reached out immediately, gave him advice to handle it professionally and not escalate online. And Steve chose a different route. Kyle says that was not his decision, and he had no control over the deletion itself. On paper, Kyle wins this round clean. But then, Brad shows up on Impulsive and throws a spanner in the whole thing. Brad was actually there. He filmed content with NELK throughout this entire era. He was in the room during those merch drops watching the numbers fly, and his take is this. Kyle's breakdown only accounted for Steve's personal merch split, the 70-30 deal on his own products. What it did not account for is all the other NELK and Full Send merch that Steve was also promoting and driving traffic to, where Steve got a significantly smaller cut. So when you see 8 million or 13 million in total merch revenue during a drop, a huge portion of that was stuff Steve helped sell that is not reflected in Kyle's numbers at all. Logan pushes back on Brad, and it is actually a fair point. He says, look, being part of an organization means you do things that benefit the whole, without always seeing a direct cut. Logan does it himself with Prime and Polymarket. Steve still made $12 million in direct cash. That is a lot of money by any measure. But then Logan drops something personal. He says when Steve came on Impulsive, they cut a ton of footage specifically to protect Steve. They went out of their way. And then Steve turned around and, in Logan's words, kind of took a shot at them afterwards. Logan says it genuinely upset him because he was the one who reached out, who brought Steve on, who wanted to support him, and Steve did him dirty after all that. So now you have got Kyle saying Steve got paid and walked away fairly. Brad saying the numbers are incomplete. Logan saying Steve burned a bridge with someone who was genuinely in his corner. And Steve is out here calling everyone a loser on his Instagram stories. Here is where it actually escalates though, because Steve takes all of this energy and walks it directly into a boxing event. At Adin Ross's Brand Risk event, Steve is on camera with Mike Malak and Fred from Fred Talks Fighting. Someone asks if he would fight Kyle. Steve does not hesitate. He says yes, they are both around 184 pounds, they could drop to 160, 150, and he would do it for free. For free! He says he does not want people thinking he needs the money. He just wants to fight him. Mike Malak, who is cool with both of them and clearly uncomfortable, says he personally prefers the idea of Steve versus Steiny as a matchup, but Steve is locked in on Kyle specifically.
Who could SteveWillDoIt fight?
Is that real? Would you want to do that?
You'd fight Cole?
Yeah, I weigh 184. I think we dropped to $160, $150.
Been in this space for like 10 years, and seeing things go the way they have with these two, it's kind of upsets me a little bit.
Do you like that fight though, Steve and Kyle? That'd be a main event, pay-per-view.
I like Steve and Steiny better, to be honest with you.
You would fight Cole?
Yeah, for sure.
Have you spoken to Adin Ross about it?
No, I'll do it for free too. Really? I'll say no. I want to give the money to someone, but I would like to. I want to, because if I were to do boxing, I want to be like, people think I just need money or something. But I would do it just to, like, I don't know, just fight him.
What do you think about Kyle's current training?
Noob.
What about endurance-wise?
Noob.
What's your prediction for that fight, SteveWillDoIt versus Cole?
Steve is definitely got some strength. Steve's definitely got some strength. I mean, Kyle runs.
Then Adin Ross confirms on stream that he reached out to both of them. Steve said yes immediately. Kyle has not responded. And that silence from Kyle is doing a lot of work right now. Because whatever Kyle does next, the internet has already framed it. If he says no, he is scared. If he says yes, he is walking into a fight with a guy who genuinely does not feel pain and would show up to war just to prove a point. Steve even casually mentions at the same event that he wants to fight Caleb Hammer as well, also for free, after Caleb audited his finances on his show and absolutely cooked him live. Steve said it was the worst cortisol spike of his entire life. The guy is basically just collecting enemies and offering all of them free fights. So here is where we land on all of this. Kyle's numbers are real enough that you cannot dismiss them. Steve made $12 million. He had equity, chose cash, signed an agreement, and still holds Happy Dad shares. On the business side, Kyle handled this by the book and presented it calmly and credibly. But Brad's point matters. The full picture of what Steve drove in revenue for NELK as a whole is not in Kyle's video. And if you were Steve, watching your name sell tens of millions in merch while your personal cut is a fraction of the total, you might feel some kind of way about that too, even if the contract said otherwise. The real tragedy, like Mike Malak actually said on camera, is that this whole thing could have been so much bigger. Steve and NELK together, at their peak, were unstoppable. Now one of them is crashing out on Instagram stories, and the other is posting view counts that nobody outside of their paid sponsors seems to be engaging with. NELK is not 2020 NELK anymore. Steve has more genuine, organic momentum right now than the brand that made him. And somewhere in the middle of all this beef, a boxing fight with Kyle Forgeard might be the most honest thing either of them has done for their careers in years. Whether that fight actually happens, that is the only question left worth asking. Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos, and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.